Welcome to Custody Transfers, getting records from there to here. This training was produced by the State Electronic Records Initiative in coordination with the Council of State Archivists. It is to help archives and others who maintain electronic records understand the steps you can take to ensure the success of electronic records transfers. In this video, we'll cover transfer prerequisites and requirements, the steps involved during a simple transfer process, and where to look for helpful tools and guidance to facilitate this process. We hope that this video not only helps you understand the risk facing electronic records and how to combat that risk, but also articulates the importance of the unique technology needed to preserve records, especially as they move from one custodian to another. We hope this video will give you the information you need to become equipped to preserve electronic records for the long term. Due to the complexities of managing digital information, transferring electronic records requires careful planning and coordination with records creators in order to ensure records remain intelligible, accessible, unchanged, and complete during the transfer process. There are a number of different approaches to transferring digital information from one custodian to another. This video will briefly introduce some of these approaches and will provide a framework for the transfer process that is generally applicable across record formats and transfer methods. Links to the software tools referenced in this video are included in the companion resource guide. What are the steps involved in an electronic records transfer? Before any transfers, the involved organizations should begin by collaboratively determining policies, procedures, recommendations, and requirements for transfer. A successful transfer will involve communicating with the agencies, offices, or donors that create and possess eligible records, identifying and surveying the records to be transferred, and preparing the records for transfer. Preparatory steps can include performing virus checks, calculating checksums to record fixity, and recording administrative metadata. Roles should be established as part of this process, which detail which party is responsible for performing each step. The records should be packaged for transfer, and preferred methods for transfer should be identified. Finally, the records will be transferred to the permanent repository, and confirmation of the successful receipt of the records or any issues encountered during the transfer process will be communicated to the donor. Documentation such as a transfer agreement and accession records should be drafted and completed. Let's take a look at each of these steps in more detail. Determining policies, procedures, and requirements for transfer. Transferring custody of electronic records can involve archivists, IT staff, records creators, and additional stakeholders. It is helpful to have procedures and guidelines in place in order to work with these different stakeholders during the transfer process. Procedures that are helpful to communicate and document in guidelines include transfer protocols and acceptable tools for interagency records transfer. Partner with IT for assistance in determining and developing these means of transfer. Preferred methods and file formats for transfer. For more information on file formats, stay tuned for the next video in this series. Determining roles in the transfer process. What can agencies expect during transfer? Who will be responsible for each step? For example, who will be responsible for surveying and creating file manifests of records or generating checksums before transfer? Performing virus checks. Will this be the agency or the archives? Establish roles in guidance documentation to streamline the transfer process. Reevaluate and update transfer policies and guidance over time, and continue to engage transfer stakeholders like IT, state agencies, and records management in order to update procedures as technology and other factors change. Be as transparent as possible. Openly publish and share transfer procedures, roles, responsibilities, and guidance. This will help establish expectations with stakeholders during the transfer process. For guidance in determining, developing, and documenting transfer policies and procedures, check out the State Interagency Electronic Records Transfer Checklist. Communicating with records creators. The first step to transferring records is initiating the transfer, whether prompted by policy, agency, IT, or archives. This step need not be complicated. It can usually be accomplished simply by providing a set of communication protocols to allow the originating agency and the archives the ability to freely contact each other about upcoming and future transfers, scheduled or ad hoc. Another preliminary step will be to fully inventory all of the electronic records that are candidates to be part of this transfer. Additionally, any contextual information associated with these records, including associated metadata and/or sensitive or confidential information, should also be identified and inventoried. Context is key when it comes to electronic records. There are thousands of potential file formats, programming languages, data structures, and other techniques that could be part of a given set of records. A complete understanding of what these records are and how they were created and used is essential to preservation efforts. Thus, this knowledge must be transferred as well. How to create inventories. Tools like Karen's Directory Printer, HashMyFiles, and Droid can be used to generate a list of file names plus additional information about files that can be saved as a single inventory document. Command line scripts can similarly be used to output a list of files from a directory into a text document or CSV file. Be sure to use tools that are user-friendly and simple to use, especially if end users are not IT professionals. Preparing records for transfer. The transferring institution should review the records to ensure that they have proper context, metadata description, and arrangement that reflects the original order and use of the records. The institution should also perform its own virus and malware checks to ensure that it isn't distributing infected materials. Furthermore, in addition to a technical review, the institution should conduct an intellectual review of the materials. Sensitive and confidential information must be identified prior to transfer as part of the process. When electronic records are transferred from one custodian to another, implicit or explicit to the transfer is the transfer of one's responsibility to protect information rights within the transferred materials. If the receiving agency is not aware of any rights or where such information can be found, it will create long-term preservation and access problems. Tools such as Bulk Extractor can scan records for string patterns that can identify personally identifiable information, or PII, such as phone numbers, email addresses, credit card numbers, and social security numbers. Packaging and transfer. Once all preparation is complete, the originating agency can use a variety of tools like Bagger to package materials for transfer. It is crucial for all materials part of the transfer to be packaged together to maintain their context. Additionally, tools that compress or otherwise modify data in packaging should be avoided, as these can inadvertently or unexpectedly change record data, damaging the record's integrity. One important note: there may be metadata contained in or captured by the file system or document records management system that will not transfer, or worse, may be unintentionally overwritten during transfer. The destination repository should determine how best to capture and transfer this additional metadata, including using write blockers or other software designed to prevent accidental data overwrites. The originating agency should be sure to retain a copy of the transfer package until the custody transfer is complete, in order to safeguard against unexpected loss or corruption of data. Ultimately, there are many ways to actually transfer data, but the major categories are web-based protocols like File Transfer Protocol, FTPS, or SSH File Transfer Protocol, SFTP. Portable storage media such as external flash and hard drives, CDs, and so on that are exchanged between custodians. Third-party file sharing, storage, and content management services like Google Drive, Box, Dropbox, Microsoft SharePoint, and more. Capture or harvesting of information from websites, social media, and other published electronic sources. For more information on approaches to archiving network-borne materials, please refer to the Companion Resources Guide. It's best practice to make exact derivatives of the transfer contents rather than move original records during transfer. This will lessen the risk of unintentional modification or deletion of records. The method of transfer may depend on technical capabilities and the amount and type of files being transferred. Finally, the records will be transferred. When the archival institution receives the transferred materials, staff should perform some basic checks to ensure the integrity of the records. Firstly, a virus and malware scan should be performed to ensure that no unwanted or malicious code has made it into the records. Any affected records should be quarantined and reported back to the originating agency. Then, a fixity check and validation of the transfer package should be completed. This will ensure that the originating agency and archives agree on what was sent and what was received, which theoretically should be identical. This is a crucial step, as the most likely time for the records to be lost or damaged is during transfer. Anytime records are copied or data packets are transmitted, there is a potential for data loss. Once the transfer package's integrity is verified, the archives can place the records in redundant storage and notify the agency that the transfer package has been received. The archives can then complete the formal documentation and move into its electronic records processing and long-term preservation workflows. Completing transfer documentation. Each transfer should be governed by an official agreement between the originating custodian and the receiving custodian, making official the transfer of custody, as well as any other legal requirements, stipulations, and conditions of transfer. This official transfer agreement also presents the final opportunity for all sides to review the work they have done to ensure that nothing is missed. Thank you for watching Custody Transfers, Getting Records from There to Here. The tools and resources referenced during the video, as well as additional resources that may be of assistance during each step in the transfer process, are included in the COSA Resource Center and are listed on the Companion Resource Guide with additional detail. The link to the Companion Guide is included in the video description. Here are the links within the Companion Resource Guide. This training was produced by the State Electronic Records Initiative in coordination with the Council of State Archivists. The Council of State Archivists is a nonprofit membership organization of the state and territorial government archives in the 50 states, 5 territories, and the District of Columbia. COSA began the State Electronic Records Initiative project in 2012 to address the long-term care and access of electronic records. For additional resources on electronic records preservation and management, please visit the State Electronic Records Initiative webpage.